You want the best for your child. K-12 can help them gain the skills they need to reach their full potential while giving you the support you need to get them there. K-12-powered schools are tuition-free, accredited online public schools for students in kindergarten through 12th grade. Their state-certified teachers make online learning interactive and engaging, allowing your child to learn at their pace from the safety of home. Join the more than 3 million families who've chosen K-12. Go to k12.com/podcast today to learn more. That's k12.com/podcast.
Coming up on episode 397 of Wheel Bearings, we've got the Easter Jeep Safari concepts for 2025. Kia developing a midsize electric pickup for the U.S. Ford's got a couple of new models overseas that we can't get here in America. GM opens an English studio with a Corvette concept. TFL races a 1968 Corvette versus a 2021 versus a Nissan Leaf. And the results might be a little unexpected. And we got our first look at a Slate truck. That's the cheap electric pickup truck being financed by Jeff Bezos. All that and more coming up next. This is Wheel Bearings, episode number 397. I am Sam Abu-Al-Salmon from Telemetry.
I am Roberto Baldwin from SAE International and the world at large.
The world at large. At large. A man, many traveled. You could say that he drives the bearings off this wheel.
Yep.
Or the wheel off its bearings.
Before you say anything else, why don't you tell us who you are?
Oh, sorry. Hello, everybody. People of the internet. I am back. My name is Chad Kirchner. I do what these guys do, except on other places of the internet. And I'm here to regale you with all of my knowledge of something. Star Trek.
Say the name of the thing you do.
The thing that I do. I do a couple of things, but my main sort of outlet for all of my rage is a newsletter called The Kirchner Report. It's at kirchnerreport.com. There'll be a link in the show notes, I'm sure. And it's really what I love about doing it is I don't want to say be myself, but like I can really editorialize on stuff that maybe you can't do at other publications because there's editors and people that would get mad at you if you said certain things. So, like,
I once filed a story where it was kicked back and said it was too anti-capitalism.
Yeah, so like I just like, and I'm not gonna lean a lot into it in here per se, but like there's things going on that just really irritate me.
Well, that's why I left my last job, because I was getting censored.
Yeah, so I just think that fascism is bad. That's all. That's all.
Yeah.
And trans people are people. That's all.
Absolutely.
Seems like a novel concept, but these days.
In fact, I would argue that my kid is more of a human being than most of the people involved with the current administration.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yes.
Okay. All right. on that. Nicole's not here because she is currently on the third leg of her double transcontinental trek. Because she was with me on Wednesday and Thursday in Los Olivos, California, where we drove something that we will talk about next week because it's still under embargo. And then she flew from there to Miami to check out the new Cupras and go to the Formula E race. And then now she's on her way back. And she went from Boston she flew out of Boston. She's lives in New Hampshire. She flew out of Boston to Santa Barbara, back to Miami. And now she is on her way back to San Diego to drive the Lincoln Navigator, which I drove yesterday. And I'm back here after a red eye home last night. And then on Tuesday, she's flying from San Diego back to New York for the auto show, where we'll catch up with her again. Are you going to the auto show, Chad?
No, I am not. I should have.
There's actually stuff going on at the auto show. The New York Auto Show this year.
I said no to the auto show because I have too much other stuff going on with the job. So
I mean, like, it's not.
I love New York, but I'm just like I can't.
It's not on the rundown, but like Subaru is doing another EV.
Yeah.
You know, we're gonna see some stuff from Kia. We're gonna see some stuff from Hyundai. Like
Genesis.
It almost feels like an auto show. guys.
Yeah, Hyundai is going to show the new Palisade, which actually, when Nicole and I were driving on Thursday, we actually saw a new Palisade on the road going the opposite direction, a 2026 Palisade. And so
So much news.
We'll be seeing that in detail on Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday evening. And then Genesis is going to have something, as you mentioned. Subaru's got two. They're showing a new Outback and a new EV. So
trail spotter, trendsetter. I don't remember.
Yeah, something like that.
They're paying for 2 press conferences, which I think is silly. But I guess if you have Subaru money,
are they doing 2?
They are, which is so weird. They must feel like they need 20 minutes for each product, but or they got cut a really good deal.
Yeah,
regardless,
probably more the latter.
I think they got a good deal.
Regardless, though, if you contact or add that to what's happened in Shanghai, like last week or is coming up, like this is a really this end of the month here is really condensed with auto news. Might be the busiest time of the year. At least kind of what I'm saying.
Quarters are quartering.
We'll have a bunch of stuff to talk about
next week.
Yeah.
Cars, everything. Yeah. So what are we going to talk about this week?
Well, apparently neither of you drove anything this week. At least nothing that you can talk about.
I can't talk about stuff.
Robbie drove the same thing that Nicole and I did, but the day before, and so we'll be talking about that one next week.
They also bought assets in Nikola.
Yeah,
so
that's true. Well, actually, you know what? It was the Lucid Gravity is what we drove. We just can't talk about the driving impressions. But at the end of the episode today, make sure when we're done talking, make sure you keep listening, because I did a pretty interesting interview. I did a bunch of interviews, and there'll be several of them were on video and have been up for patrons. So if you're a Patreon supporter of the show, thank you very much. Those are in your Patreon feed with several different people. And then I did an audio interview with Jean-Philippe Gauthier, who is the head of digital and electronics at Lucid. And we talked about the software and the EE architecture of the Gravity. So listen on the end of the show today, and then the videos will be up on YouTube for everybody else on Tuesday, along with my very extended write-up that I did for the Autopian will be up on Tuesday morning. So watch out for that. In the meantime, I did drive something else before I headed out to California this week, which was I had the 2025 GMC Canyon AT4X AEV edition. So this of all of GM's mid-sized pickups, which is the GMC Canyon and the Chevy Colorado, this is the most off-roadiest of off-road variants of that vehicle. So it's got the same 2.7 liter 4-cylinder turbo that's in all the Canyons and Colorados. It's like 310 horsepower. And then, GMC's got, several trim levels. They've got a Denali, they've got the AT4 and the Elevation. And then there's also the AT4X, which is new, which is even more off-roady than the AT4. And then on top of that, you can add the AEV edition package, which is
AEV stands for all electric vehicles, right?
Yeah, no.
It's American Expedition Vehicles, yes. And they used to be just a aftermarket kind of not a tuner, but like an upfitter, and now they've in the past few years have actually worked with GM directly.
And also, I think they also do some stuff with Stellantis for Ram. That you can get AEV parts through Stellantis, and you can also buy stuff directly from AEV, and you can, if you have a truck, you can send it to AEV's shop here in Michigan, and they will upfit it, and spend, they will equip your truck with, or your SUV with as much stuff as your bank account can support. Yes. And that may or may not be as far as you hope it will be. In the case of this Canyon, The AEV edition package was an extra $10,100, which gets you AEV wheel flares on the wheel arches, a bed-mounted vertical spare tire carrier, because on this one you also get 17-inch beadlock capable wheels with 35-inch Goodyear Wrangler tires on there. And normally the spare tire on the Canyon in Colorado is mounted underneath the back end of the bed, as it is on most pickup trucks. But that 35-inch tire is too big to fit back there. So you get a bed-mounted version. And I'll come back to that in a minute. There's also there's an AEV rear differential, locking differential, skid plate. You get the a skid plate for the transfer case. You get accessory power distribution. So there's already switches wired in, installed in the cabin for extra lights and whatever else you want to put on there. The accessory switch kit. Let's see, an AEV front bumper, and if you wanted to, you could replace that AEV front bumper with even a more expensive AEV front bumper that can also integrate a hitch. But that's you'd have to go directly to AEV for. You don't get that through the factory. What else here? Skid plate for the fuel tank. See, a front skid plate under the engine and transmission. See, driver selectable full locking front differential, and a whole lot more stuff. And there's also rock sliders on the side, which means you don't get a side step or running board or anything like that. And with the 35-inch tires and the lift they put on this thing, climbing up into it may be somewhat challenging for some people. You basically, you got to grab the steering wheel or the grab handle on the A-pillar if you're on the passenger side, and basically pull yourself up into this thing, unless you're as tall as Robbie, in which case you kind of step down and slide into it.
He steps down into it. As somebody
a car for my people.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody who has ripped the running boards off of a AT4, I appreciate not having them.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah, I mean, if you're actually going to do serious off-roading, this is a better solution. For daily driving, it's definitely more of a hassle, but it works for this purpose. Of course, adding all those skid plates and all these big wheels and tires and everything else means it has some downsides. For example, my next door neighbor has, they bought a very early Ford Maverick, and they got a base XL hybrid Maverick, the one when you could still get it for $20,000. That's what they have with the steelies and everything else. That Maverick has a payload rating of 1,497 pounds. This Canyon does not. This Canyon has a payload rating of just over 1,000 pounds. Because, when you add on all these big chunks of steel everywhere, that takes away from your payload. So payload, not great.
Well, it also has, and this isn't an AEV thing, it's a AT4 thing. It has those DSSV spool valve dampers.
Yes. Yeah, I forgot about
that. Which are amazing, which are incredible.
Yeah.
But when you tune an off-road truck, it's got to have kind of a soft ride for reasons. And because of that also hurts the payload. So yeah, it's so
your head doesn't smack up against the side window. Let's just say that. If you have a really stiff thing, you're going to hit something, and your head's going to whip over and to hit the side window.
Yes,
ride quality in this truck is surprisingly good. And you can drive over most stuff without. There's enough sidewall that if you clip a curb, it's not going to kill you. So it's actually reasonably pleasant to drive. The other downside, of course, of having these big giant all-terrain tires and high, lots of ride height and lots of weight, is that fuel economy is not great. 14 miles per gallon.
Yikes.
Which, is better than the Ram RHO I had a couple of weeks ago, which just barely hit 11.
That's like Raptor R fuel economy, though, man.
Yeah,
that's bad.
And I wasn't even doing anything particularly aggressive with this. This is just driving. Combination of driving around town, driving on the highway. It's not great fuel economy. But if you
want, then you got to pay for it.
Exactly.
If you want the Brodosiest Brodoser that's ever Brodosed.
Yeah.
No, this is.
I actually really like it. I like it
because the Brodos are just like raised, and then it has like.
Yeah, but
tiny sidewalls and like it doesn't make any sense. That's I just
no. This is actually a functional off-road truck.
Yeah, you could go and drive
nobody's going to off-road. But nobody's going to off-road because the truck was how much? $70,000.
I'll get to that.
Okay. I mean, keep in mind this is a mid-sized pickup truck.
Yeah, and one of our friends wanted to go to the local township compost site to pick up, because our township, when they pick up the yard waste every week during the warm weather months, they have a site, out on the edge of town. They take it out and then they build big compost piles, and then they offer free compost and also the branches and stuff that they pick up. They shred those so you can get free mulch. Township residents can get a couple of yards of free mulch, a couple of yards of free compost. And so our friend wanted to go out there and get some compost. Unfortunately, the compost wasn't ready yet. Should be ready next week, I think. But because of this giant spare tire sitting up against the back wall or the front wall of the bed, that takes up quite a bit of space. So I took that out. That thing is really heavy.
The tire?
The wheel and tire.
Yeah, you got to have like three. Like if you've ever put I don't think people realize tires and wheels have gotten just bigger because cars have gotten bigger. There's a bunch of reasons. Some of it marketing, some of it safety, most of it marketing. And so the tires, they weigh so much. And so whenever someone's like, these kids don't even know how to change a tire, I'm like, well, it's also, the tires are like 75 pounds now.
Yeah.
Well, because it's not a compact spare or anything.
No, this is the same as the tires on the other four wheels.
Can you imagine if you're by yourself out in the woods or out in the sand or out in whatever, and you debeat a tire or you it gets slashed. Now you got to get the jack out, and now you got to get this giant tire, and now you got to figure out how you're going to get it. I'm like, okay, you're going to have to like create some sort of device to help you get the tire onto the lug nuts.
So just throw this out there because Robbie brought it up.
Never go out alone.
Never go out. No, never go out alone. No, that's like I don't want to say it's off-roading 101, but it's off-roading 101. You don't go alone.
Yeah.
Because things can and do happen. So
yeah. The other downside of the position of that spare tire in the bed, so like I said, it's mounted sideways up against the front wall of the bed, which, means that, a 35-inch tire in that position, when you look up in your rearview mirror, pretty much all you see is 35-inch off-road tire.
And so you have it, so you don't forget.
Exactly. Yeah, you want.
Okay, do I got that tire still? Still there.
If you accidentally don't lock it down tight, and it falls out of the back or bounces out of the back of your bed, you want to be able to see that. You want to know that, oh shit, I've lost my tire.
Oh no.
So
where'd my tire go?
So there is that too as a downside. But upside, it looks pretty cool. It looks like a serious off-roader, and it is a serious off-roader. There's lots of places this thing will go, that certainly that Ram RHO, because of its sheer size, this is a much more reasonable size, so it will fit into places where that RHO won't go.
Front and rear lockers. It's
you kind of want
the real deal.
You kind of want the smaller. I mean, that's why I think the Wrangler still is the king. People buy it, and then they buy old ones and they rip them apart, and then they rebuild it because the size and the wheelbase and everything about the Wrangler is just like, yeah, you can get it, and it's kind of nice. And well, I don't know if I don't think anyone's like nice, but fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can do, because it's the size. It's not a big vehicle.
I drove one year. I was at Moab one year for Jeep Safari, which we're going to talk about some of the concepts this week. But I drove, this was before Gladiator launched, and a basically worn winch. I did a trail ride with them, and they had an AEV. I forget what they called their version of the Gladiator. I'm pretty sure that it was the one that they did it. That they basically took a Wrangler and converted to a Gladiator before Gladiator was a thing. And we were going down these trails that were complicated. Like, it wasn't the easiest stuff, but you could tell that all these trails were originally cut for ATVs and Wranglers, especially two-door ones, because there were areas where a Wrangler would just, make a turn and you had to stop and put it in reverse and back up and basically a 3-point turn a lot of these corners, just because you had that truck bed out the back, which is kind of frustrating, especially then when you climb out of that into just a two-door Wrangler on 37s, and you're like,
you're just like,
yes, this is awesome.
I can do everything. But if you get to go buy some mulch or pick up some free mulch apparently, and some free stuff.
Yeah, it was called the AEV Brute. Brute.
Of course, the other thing is, when you want to go pick up your mulch in a truck like this, unlike the Maverick, which can carry more mulch,
an
extra 500 pounds of mulch.
Fewer mulches.
Which is probably good that it can't carry as much mulch, because you have to lift up that mulch much higher to get it into the bed of the canyon than you do in the Maverick. So overall, pretty good vehicle for what it is. It has the current GM Android Automotive infotainment system. It's 11-inch center touchscreen. The seats, as is the case with a lot of GM seats, are kind of iffy. They're not great. They're not hugely supportive. They're not terribly uncomfortable. They're just kind of meh for the seats.
Well, you're gonna have so much fun. You're just gonna be sitting you're not gonna use your whole seat. You're just gonna be sitting on the edge.
Yeah,
you're sitting on the edge of your seat.
You pay for the whole seat, but you only use the edge.
Only use the edge. Sorry.
And of course, as part of the AEV package, you get these bright red seat belts too. So there is that. And in order to get those bright red seat belts, you mentioned pricing earlier, Chad.
Yeah.
$70,200.
Holy moly!
That's a lot of money to go off road.
Okay, so hold on. So first off, Wranglers are
less.
Well, in some cases, yes. I would say though that they're also potentially. I mean, they're definitely not necessarily as safe. Not that people necessarily care about that, but I have a friend just last night. Anyway, but you also have like reliability issues with Stellantis stuff that I don't think you run into with General Motors, especially with Jeeps. I know that like it's been a while since the JK or the JL has been out, but Craig Cole, who we all know, he was going to go do a video shoot in Toronto shortly after the JL came out, and he had a complete massive power failure right where the two Canadian highways come together when you cross the border, heading towards Toronto. I forget which numbers they are, but like
401 and
401 and 402 or 405, something like that.
402.
They just complete absolute full system failure. Everything shut down.
Oh no.
So they couldn't even like call roadside or anything, like the hazards lights didn't work, things like that. It's a Jeep thing. And I still think that it's like the best for, again, if you're going to go do trail rides in Moab.
Well, to be fair, Wednesday morning, when I got up, and I was leaving the house at 6:00 to go to the airport to fly to California, I got in the canyon and I started it up and got a big red alert in the instrument cluster. Brake system failure. Speed will be limited.
Wait. But if the system doesn't work, speed should be more than limited.
Yeah, well, I think I think what it was the brake booster failed or was momentarily inoperative, because when I started to back up, I noticed, I'm not slowing down quite as much as usual. I'm going to have to press the brake pedal a hell of a lot harder. So I stopped, I put it back in park, I shut it off, waited a few seconds, restarted it. That alert went away, and the brakes were working fine at that point. Although I did have a check engine light, which, I tried cycling the ignition a couple more times. The check engine light didn't go off. So when I left it at the airport for pickup, I sent a note to the fleet manager and gave her a heads up, say, hey, here's what happened. Before you send this thing out to somebody else, you should, get that checked out. And so they were taking care of that. So, it's not, complete reliability from,
All right.
from
So AEV, your vehicle as tested, $70,000.
Yes. Base price for the AT4 is $45,700. So $23,000 in options.
Okay. So, but if you want the most bonkers Canyon, you're paying $70,000.
Yes.
If you want bonkers Toyota Tacoma, you're also paying right around $70,000. With
yeah, for a Trail Hunter or a TRD Pro, they start at $67,000. Yeah.
And guess what? The Ranger Raptor is $56,000.
Yes.
Dun, dun, dun.
You get more stuff with those other two options, but I think that
but not necessarily stuff that is actually useful. Like,
right?
Do you really need those isodynamic seats in the Tacoma? No.
I don't understand what those seats. What was happening with them.
They absorb all of the rear seat legroom. That's what they do.
Yes, that's their function.
Oh,
yeah.
Finally.
I think for most people, the Ranger Raptor is the right choice.
Yeah.
Now there are
front and rear lockers as well.
It does, and it doesn't have as sophisticated of a suspension. It doesn't have the spool valve, but the Fox live valve stuff is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like $10,000. I mean, even if you took the AEV stuff off, you just did the AT4X. She said that was like a $10,000 option, so that drops that $70,000 chuck down to $60,000. You're still cheaper. You're still a little cheaper with Raptor and a better powertrain.
Mm-hmm.
Toyota's 4-cylinder hybrid has been sus. I don't know if you're gonna go fast off road, Ranger Raptor. If you're gonna go slow, like rock crawling, the AEV might make more sense. But
yeah, no, definitely.
When did midsize trucks become so expensive?
It's trucks, man.
Well, it's funny. Expensive. Back in like 2010 or 11, when Ford discontinued the old Ranger, one of the reasons they gave was, for customers, it costs us pretty much almost as much to build a Ranger as it does to build an F-150. So this is like 14, 15 years ago.
Yep.
And then, so they said, the value proposition is not really there for customers to get the midsize instead of just going up to the full size, because it's not really going to be any cheaper and usually not getting much better fuel economy. And then what happened over the course of the next decade is those full size trucks that used to be close to the same price as the midsize, they got a whole lot more expensive.
And bigger.
And opened up a big gap. And so that's why, mid-sized trucks started to gain in popularity again. And Ford brought back the Ranger, and, we got the Canyons and Colorados and the Gladiators. But then they started climbing up in price like this too. And, hence now you have trucks like the Maverick and the Santa Cruz, for the people that need sort of some light truck-like capabilities, but at a much more reasonable price point. And
then they immediately started raising the price on that.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
So basically, we're screwed either way.
It's kind of the BMW story, right? Like the 5 Series, the M5 for first generation, second generation, fantastic, the right sized, good performance, things like that. And then suddenly that car got bigger, so then we kind of all gravitated to the 3 Series, and like the E46 M3, still one of the favorite cars that I've ever driven. But then those just got bigger and heavier, and then suddenly the 2 Series was the sweet spot, and now those are getting big and heavy, and I don't know. I mean, some of it's marketing, some of it's safety stuff, some of it's, whatever, but it's whatever happened. Sam, Roberto, more importantly, Sam, whatever happened to the cheap basic pickup truck?
Ooh. We'll come back to that in a little bit.
That's a teaser, everybody.
Yeah. Going online without ExpressVPN is like leaving your laptop unattended at the coffee shop while you run to the bathroom. Most of the time, you're probably fine. But what if one day you come out of the bathroom, your laptop's gone? Nicole, Robbie, and I all travel frequently for our work, and that means we end up connecting to open, unknown Wi-Fi networks in coffee shops like the one I was working in California last week, the Delta Sky Club in Detroit this morning, and the Puerto Rico hotel room I'm in right now. It doesn't take much technical knowledge to intercept data on an open network. A smart 12-year-old with a cheap Wi-Fi pineapple can do it. Once they've grabbed your login information or other unencrypted data, they can make up to $1,000 per person selling it on the dark web. ExpressVPN creates a secure, encrypted tunnel between your devices and the destination you're connecting to so they see nothing but random gibberish. All you have to do is launch the app or have it launch automatically when your device starts, and then one click protects your data. I have ExpressVPN on my MacBook Pro, Windows machines, Android phones, Chromecast, and it also works on iOS, Linux, most TV streamers, and even many routers to protect your whole network. When I look at my Wi-Fi settings on my phone or laptop, I find several hundred networks I've connected to over the years. I'm recording this ad right now sitting in a hotel room in Puerto Rico, and like every one of those open Wi-Fi networks, I use ExpressVPN to protect the data that I send to various servers and the materials I download. I often get embargoed materials from automakers and suppliers that isn't supposed to be shared until a specific date and time, so it's important that it gets downloaded securely on an encrypted network. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/wheelbearings. That's expressvpn.com/wheelbearings to find out how you can get up to 4 extra months for free. expressvpn.com/wheelbearings.
You want the best for your child. K-12 can help them gain the skills they need to reach their full potential while giving you the support you need to get them there. K-12-powered schools are tuition-free, accredited online public schools for students in kindergarten through 12th grade. Their state-certified teachers make online learning interactive and engaging, allowing your child to learn at their pace from the safety of home. Join the more than 3 million families who have chosen K-12. Go to k12.com/podcast today to learn more. That's k12.com/podcast.
Did you know you can support Wheel Bearings directly? Head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia and you can become a patron today. Your contributions will help fund the platforms and tools we use to bring the podcast to you. And exclusives and improvements are already on the way thanks to your generosity. So if you want to be part of an automotive podcast like no other, head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia. We've updated the Wheel Bearings merch store, and now there's a whole bunch of new choices, new colors, new styles, t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, hats, mugs, travel mugs, stickers, aprons, tote bags, you name it. You can get your Wheel Bearings merch at shop.wheelbearings.media. Go check it out. That's shop.wheelbearings.media. But there's one other thing I want to talk about with this Canyon, and I don't want to talk much about tariffs this week, but I'm looking at the Monroney for the Canyon, and on the Monroneys, they list some degree of where they list where the vehicle is assembled, but also some of the percentage of parts content. So the Canyons and Colorados are built in Wentzville, Missouri, so they are assembled in the U.S. So you don't there's no tariff on the final vehicle. However, it lists here for vehicles in this car line, U.S. and Canadian parts content is 49%. So less than half is U.S. and Canada. We don't actually know from this what is actually U.S. content, but I'm guessing it's probably somewhere in the 35 to 40% range. And then Mexico content is 25%. So if U.S. content is, let's say 40%, that means that 60%, because the other 25% is from somewhere besides U.S., Canada, or Mexico, 60% of the content of this is going to be subjected to tariffs, which means even though this thing is built in the U.S., it is going to get even more expensive in the coming months, assuming the tariffs stay in place.
And that they figure out how to actually collect them, because
there's that too.
The collection system.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something that, like, Ford is this weekend running this big, huge single page ad in a lot of major newspapers. Like, we assemble 80% of our vehicles and stuff here, whatever. Like, it's a real, ooh, we're the most American. Well,
yeah, but their content, their U.S. content is not that different from this.
The same. Yeah. I mean, we have such an integrated system, which, Sam, last time we were in person, I mean, we were talking about the U.S. Canada Auto Pact from I don't even remember what year that was.
Early 60s, like 62, 63, I think.
I mean, like, we are, when it comes to auto production, Canada and U.S. really are the same country in a lot of ways. Yes, there's a border there, and I'm not saying that Canada should be part of the United States, don't get me wrong, but we've had such a free flow of talent and engineering and parts and just the overall experience that it's really, now we're trying to forcibly split them apart in a, like, it's almost like taking a Siamese twin and performing that surgery. Like, it's not,
It doesn't always work.
it doesn't always work.
All right. I think that's enough on this truck. Yeah. Oh, the EPA fuel economy rating for this thing, I got 14. It's rated at 16 city and 16 highway. So
you get those giant those wheels. I see a lot of those wheels on trucks that never go off road, and don't do that, because those wheels. I'm sorry, those tires. You're just melting them.
Well, it's. There's an off-road park in Indiana that I used to go to a decent amount, and
if you live near the off-road park, or you're always going off-road, yeah. But if you're just always on the freeway,
but you're not. But no.
To the office.
My point is, you don't spend $70,000 on a truck that you off-road. Nobody's going to that off-road park with a brand. Like, I would show up with a press car with permission, of course, and I'd show up with a press car, and they'd be like, "You're driving that here?" Well, yeah, that's the manufacturer claim. Says truck, will truck, right? But nobody's doing that. They're bringing in stuff that they don't mind damaging or denting or whatever, and that's why a lot of these trucks do just end up in, shopping malls or office parks or whatever. If the apocalypse comes, cool, great, go find one of these trucks to steal. But I don't know the rest of the time. I bet far fewer people go off road with these than what AEV or even General Motors would like you to think.
Yeah, I agree. I think, having been to some off-road parks, most of the people there are running, 10, 15, 20, 30-year-old trucks. Yeah. When I got a Bronco Raptor stuck in a mud pit, it was somebody in a late 80s XJ Cherokee that pulled me out with their winch.
Yeah, there's a lot of Suzuki Samurais. I've seen a lot of those, like really just rusted out with a winch. A Samurai with a winch can conquer any trail.
Plus a lot of side-by-sides.
Yeah, there's a lot of that too.
Yeah.
I mean, some people do. Some people do. So, like, I don't want to get angry. Don't send me angry emails. Send them to Robbie. But
you can send them to me. Most people don't do this stuff, and the people who do it, they know who they are, and they're proud of it. I think people who ride motorcycles. I would ride my Vespa every day to work, rain, snow, whatever. I was riding my Vespa around to work, and I remember I would get to work when it was raining, and there'd be like one other motorcycle there, and I'm like, come on. I would be that guy that was just like, you only riding your motorcycle when it's nice. Come on, how do you live?
When I had the S2000, top was, if it was above freezing, the top was down. And my theory was, if you got caught in a rainstorm, you just drove faster and you don't get wet.
Just drive faster, you won't get wet.
That only let me down once, and that was driving through like a literal severe thunderstorm, like 80-mile-an-hour winds.
That's like my Miata. The only time the top is ever up on my Miata is when I'm washing it.
Yes,
that's how you live.
Let's continue with the off-road vehicle theme. You referenced the Easter Jeep Safari.
Chad. I did. And I did see these concepts in person.
Yeah, you and I were in Auburn Hills last week for a couple of hours, and we got to see these 7 concepts. 3 kind of really interesting ones, and the rest, one was they brought back a 2019 concept, and then the others were just putting on Jeep performance parts, just to show those
all the parts.
Yeah.
So before we talk about like the concepts that were like objectively like cool, I just would like to speak to the blueprint concept, which is the one that they did a Wrangler up, and basically any part that was available through Jeep Performance Parts, they powder coated blue, and then they put a QR code on it, so that would take you right to the Jeep Performance Parts page to buy it. I know that that's a marketing thing, but man, that's super smart. It's not exciting, it's not interesting, but man, is it smart, because you take that to Moab, you park it somewhere, and people come up and look at it, and then they're like, oh, I think this part's really cool. It looks really good in person on this. Oh, there's a QR code. Scan it, buy it. Like, that is that is very clever and done in, I think, a very genuine way. Instead of just showing up somewhere with a tent and a parts truck or something like that. Like, this is...
You can see what it looks like on a Jeep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is an actual functional vehicle. They're doing rides in these things, so you can see how everything actually works.
Yeah, and they trail ride throughout the week, so you might actually see it on a trail doing Jeep stuff, and then you're like, oh, hey, I could really use those mesh doors, or I like that front bumper, or whatever. And you can turn around, and as long as you have cell phone signal, buy it right there. So it's not interesting, I think, from like, hey, this is a cool concept, but I think it speaks to a very genuine way of trying to reach customers and actually sell stuff. So
yeah. So the three really cool concepts. There was one based on a Gladiator, one based on a 4-door Wrangler, and one based on a 2-door Wrangler. Which of those three was your favorite, Chad?
So of the three, it's actually the one that I didn't write about because it's not the 4xe platform, but the retro one, the 90s
the Rewind.
one, was the Rewind, yes. So Jeep designers and whatever, they took a 2-door Wrangler with the 2-liter, the base 2-liter. If they still offered the manual, I'm sure it would have been a manual. And they painted it this late 80s, more mid 90s, like almost like a plum crazy, if you're thinking of a Dodge color, but like a real kind of purple.
This is very the late 80s, early.
Yeah, they did a.
As an old person, as you pointed out earlier, this is
yeah.
By mid 90s, we didn't have color anymore. By the mid 90s, color was dead.
But it really feels like a mid 90s Taco Bell.
Yeah,
like that's like, you walk up to it. That's something you would see in the Taco Bell parking lot in like 1994, and it is awesome. Not much technically changed to it per se. They have some interesting quote unquote Lamborghini inspired wheels that they painted chrome, or not chrome, but a gold, kind of a copper gold. They used the tow hooks and copper tow hooks and bumper and stuff from the 392 Wrangler, because it's already that kind of color. And they like just late 80s, early 90s it. There's a Sony Walkman in it. There's
an old cell phone, hardwired cell phone.
Yeah, an old car phone in there. It doesn't work, but there's an old one in there.
They said they wanted to put in a cassette deck, but couldn't find one and figure out how to mount it in there.
Apparently, Uconnect 5 talks a lot to the car itself, and removing it makes some bad things happen. So they couldn't do much there, but it's all stickered out and paraffinaed out. There was a Trapper Keeper in there. There was stickers from bands from the late 80s, early 90s. There was definitely a Tears for Fears sticker. If you remember, Domino's Pizza had a mascot called the Noid, the Domino's Noid.
Which is one of the most... him. They should have avoided him. What do they
avoid the Noid? So they've got some stickers in there to him. There's a QR code on this Igloo cooler they stuck in the back that opens up YouTube to Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up, so they actually rickroll you, which is funny. Which is why I figured out what the QR code was. I kept asking because Sam and I were both at the background or the preview, so we weren't allowed to take pictures of anything there, and so there was a QR code. This wasn't on the other one with the stuff. It's just a separate QR code. And I'm like, well, what is it? And nobody would tell me what it was. And I couldn't get my phone out to take a picture of myself. But thankfully, my friend Amar Ahmed, who is the brand CEO of Fiat right now, was there. And he's like, oh, I got you. And he showed it and it popped up. And I just started laughing. I'm like, yeah, you guys are good. It's all sorts of nostalgia. There isn't a lot of technical stuff to it. It's raised 2 inches. It's on 37s.
It's on KM3s, I think, right?
Yeah, it's on KM3s. Everything either was on a KO3 or a KM3, which are great tires.
Yeah, and in addition to the purple, they had some turquoise and pink graphics on the hood and the fenders, and that color scheme carried through the inside. If you are roughly of our age and you remember these wild neon graphics on Trapper Keepers and stuff, and ski suits that people used to wear in that era. They actually got an old vintage ski suit and cut it up and used that to upholster the seats and the dashboard with this, this same kind of patterns.
Yeah. And then there's like this almost like 8-bit sort of like sunset neon kind of graphic on the hood. Cruise and Sunset is the arcade game that it inspires me. It inspired like my thought process when I saw it. It's fun, and it's actually pretty obtainable. Like if you're somebody that's like, oh hey, when the Jeep people cut stuff up, because we're going to talk about stuff that they really like spent a lot of time on. This wasn't it. But boy, it hits you right in the feels. It really does.
My favorite was the Convoy.
Yeah.
So this is the one based on the Gladiator. And they give it, kind of a vintage military feel with canvas half doors and the top. But what really set it apart was the front end. So they replaced the front end bodywork, everything forward of the windshield, and took off the Wrangler bodywork, and they fabricated bodywork that was very much inspired by the old J series trucks of the 70s and 80s. So if you remember what those look like, basically they took that kind of look and applied it to the Gladiator. And assuming that there is a next generation Gladiator, this is what it should look like. And, set it apart more from the Wrangler, so it's not just a Wrangler pickup truck. This one I thought looked really cool, and this one I think is on 40-inch wheels.
It is,
yeah, and 40-inch KM3s, and it's got a lift on it, and it just this thing looks like it could literally go anywhere.
Yeah, and they the paint, it's a matte that I think they called it some sort of an Air Force kind of a color, like it's a real military kind of plane inspired, jet kind of inspired thing, and that pertains to the interior.
No stops is what they call it.
Yeah, and that also pertains to the interior as well, which is cool.
My friend, her dad had a Comanche, which is that old truck, that old Jeep truck.
Anytime.
And all the Comanches, so I knew a few people with Comanches, they all had a distinct smell inside, which I don't know if it's good or bad. Like, was everyone getting cancer, or was everyone just enjoying a distinct smell? They just had a distinct odor. I don't know what it was. It wasn't bad. It was just something different. I don't know what was going on. I don't know what they were putting in the vehicles. I don't know if all those people are still alive.
Anytime you put that front end on a Jeep, people go nuts. Like they just go bonkers. So that explains why Jeep continues to do it. But it is a very cool concept. It is. I mean, they definitely spent some time on it. And yeah, it's the one that they started off with a Gladiator underneath. A new one they started with the Gladiator underneath. So,
and then there was the Bug Out.
There's a lot of custom fab with that.
Yeah.
So that was based on a 4xe Wrangler. They removed the back seats, cut a lot of stuff up, did a lot of custom fabricating. This is supposed to be another take on on overlanding. So it has a KO3s instead of KM3s because it's more of a light duty off-roader, which is what overlanding mostly is. But it's designed to kind of to literally bug out. It's your go bag when crap hits the fan. Like you can live out of it. It's big enough you could potentially sleep in the back. It's designed to kind of take everything with you that you bring. So it's like but it's also designed to be extremely lightweight. So it's what happens if Jeep wants to kind of strip everything out and create a lightweight yet kind of off-road. Like it's really kind of just like I don't know how the lightweighting fits directly in with the overlanding, other than fuel economy and
rain. You can pick up more like mulch when you're out.
Weight. When you're going off road, weight is kind of one of your enemies.
It is.
If you can reduce the weight of the vehicle, it makes it a lot easier to maneuver over stuff. Like my neighbor, he's got a 97 TJ, and he only uses it for off-roading. He does not drive it on road, except flat towing it to places like Moab and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And one of the things he did, he does a lot of his own fabrication. A couple of years ago, he fabricated new fenders for it out of aluminum, replaced the steel fenders with aluminum fenders. Cool. To take a couple 100 pounds off of this thing.
Yeah, for sure. I get the lightweighting part of it. I just don't know how that applies directly to overlanding. Like, hey, you should take the weight out of everything. Let's lightweight the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's a lot of definitely custom fabricated aluminum and steel components here.
Well, it's the 4xe, so if you remove weight, that means just, when gasoline has gone away, because I don't think people realize you have to refine gasoline, and also gasoline has an expiration date.
Right.
Are you saying that if there was an apocalypse, like say some sort of crazy fungus that infected the world's population, and 20 years later the gasoline that's still in abandoned vehicles, would that not work?
No, it won't work. That's the whole point of Mad Max, is they have the refinery town.
Yeah. What I'm saying is in The Walking Dead.
I was referring to the Last of Us.
I'm saying that when they add the Hyundai Sonata or the Santa Fe in season 2, I'm saying that gas shouldn't work. Yeah. First off, they shouldn't be able to introduce a new car after the zombie apocalypse happened, because who's designing and building cars during the zombie apocalypse? But 2,
what else are you going to do?
Gas wouldn't have survived that long.
So anyway, being lighter, if you're able to find solar
electricity,
panels, charge your car to drive it around.
There is I just watched last week on this kick of watching a bunch of XKCD what ifs on YouTube. And one of them is when will the last light go off on Earth if everybody disappeared all at once? And there could be electricity around after most of us die.
Well, I mean, there's still the sun. And there's electric farms being
but those do require some maintenance at some point, though. They do require maintenance at some point, though. It's not infinite,
man.
Well, in the last,
there is literally a solar farm down the street from my house, and as society collapses, I can just go and break in.
Still would want
the book,
run a long extension cord back to your house.
Yeah,
I'll just go there and charge, during whatever, or just steal some and put them in my house.
I still would want a diesel something or another. I feel like.
Well, who's going to refine your diesel?
You can use like cooking oil.
Yeah, diesel engines can run on a lot more than.
Yeah, diesel engines can.
I know, but who's going to make? You still have to make all that stuff. Whereas I'm talking about the sun is still there. Wind is still a thing. I don't have to do anything besides learn how to turn that stuff on.
I don't see you climbing up a wind turbine to run maintenance on it. If you're
I don't need a whole turbine. Why? You can buy small wind. People still buy. You don't know enough people who live off the grid, is what I'm saying.
I clearly don't. I don't know enough preppers. I'm sorry.
You don't know clearly.
I am not prepared.
I'm from a small town where,
So
try that.
So what we're saying, listeners, is that when the apocalypse comes, Chad's going to be one of the first victims.
I hope so. Gosh, I hope so. I either want to if we're talking nuclear holocaust, I want to die in the first blast.
Oh yeah, you want to die in the first blast.
Far away from it and not have to deal with anything. Because anywhere else, no. We go to war with Canada. I hope my house gets bombed right away. That's all I'm saying. Did you want to talk about the? Did you want to talk about the Sunsetter? Speaking of the sun.
Sure.
Sun Chaser.
Yeah.
Sure.
They also did a concept called the Sun Chaser, which is mostly just a JL Rubicon with KM3s and stuff like that. But there was some cool stuff that they did with it that they might offer. They're using the prototype parts. That's got some prototype lights and stuff on it. What I thought was really interesting is they had some Land Rover inspired side storage bins, lockable storage on the side of the top that I thought was pretty clever. That they might offer, but not as interesting as the other two. But since we are talking about the power of the sun, this was called the Sun Chaser, and it is very, very yellow.
Yes.
Also, another 4x8. But
all right. Let's see. Where are we going to go next? Let's stick with trucks.
Trucks.
And Robbie is going to recuse himself because of information that he is aware of that he's not allowed to talk about yet. Chad and I don't have that information.
Yeah.
Just shut my pie hole.
So Chad, tell us about the Slate truck.
So here's something really interesting. Just randomly last week, Sean O'Kane over at TechCrunch, cool dude, breaks the story that Jeff Bezos helped found a new auto manufacturer, and they're going to make an electric pickup truck. But not only are they going to make an electric pickup truck, they're going to make an electric pickup truck that costs $25,000, and based on a photo that came out the next day that Sean says his sources confirmed, it's a very small truck.
And then when Jim Farley saw this story, his head exploded. And
when Jim Farley, yes, because somebody's coming out.
That would require Jim Farley to pay attention. I'm
sorry. Just going past that particular comment. It's a Maverick. It is a new company trying to build what the Maverick maybe.
So this is where I want to maybe take a little issue. I mean, there's obviously a lot of excitement about this thing. A $25,000 compact electric pickup truck.
Yes.
But unlike a Maverick, which has 4 doors,
it does
4 seats, technically 5. This is a standard cab pickup truck.
Yes.
This is a form factor that has rapidly disappeared from the marketplace in the last decade.
This is a 2011 Ford Ranger.
Yeah.
But maybe small.
Pretty close to that, yeah.
Which those sales, I would like to remind you, those sales did increase after Ford announced they were going to kill it. They had.
But today in 2025 or 26, I think, when this thing supposed to launch this year or next
year? Late 26, so probably early 27.
So we're looking at close to 2 years away. Do you really think that even at $25,000 that there is going to be much demand for a standard cab pickup truck in the United States?
I have a lot of thoughts on this, and I'm glad that you're here because you know way more than I do. I think that one, just from a pure satisfaction standpoint, I would love to see if this works, because there's a lot of people on the internet with really, really big mouths that talk about how they miss that old Ranger. They miss the days of a compact pickup truck that had no frills and was just basic trucking.
My 84 GMC S15 that got me through 5 years of college.
Yes. There are people out there who claim that they desperately want that. So this is potentially that. There are either like a put up or shut up kind of situation for people on the internet, but you should never argue with people on the internet or read comments, right, Robbie? Yes.
Well, here's the thing. You have the people who are like, why aren't there any manual transmissions? Boo, manual transmissions, and none of those people buy them.
Yeah, and none of those people buy them. So this in theory kind of helps answer that question. 2, I think potentially more interestingly, is a $25,000 anything. I remember when Maverick first launched, and before delivery it was $19,994 or something, and with delivery it was $21,000, and a $21,000 anything was a deal, or really kind of felt like a deal, especially something as sort of feature rich as a base Maverick was. I mean, it didn't come with cruise control, which was weird, but it had.
Well, my neighbor went and got a $300 aftermarket cruise control and put it in their 2022 Maverick, their $20,000 XL hybrid, and they're happy as clams. They're getting 42 miles per gallon with that thing.
Yep, and I mean the mileage is great. I saw people on the internet going and buying steering wheels with the cruise control buttons on it, and apparently 2 minutes of coding gives them cruise control. So, but it delivered on so much of what I think the market wanted. Maybe not everybody wanted a pickup truck, but something with a warranty that's bigger than a Mitsubishi Mirage that costs, $20,000. Wow, that's great. The 2025 Ford Maverick, I think, is starting to lose the plot a little bit, I think, with its starting price. But it was cool, and they were targeting, and they had this idea of like, look, you would buy this, but then you could either buy accessories for it in the future, or you could make stuff yourself. So they really kind of embraced this maker culture that was really starting to kind of take off when Maverick launched. That I think is just as big and just as even bigger today, I think, than it was then. So if you were then to bring an alternative to that is less, the same or less money, depending on, how you factor this in, that embraces that maker kind of mindset, or that do-it-yourselfer kind of mindset, I think that I think the total addressable market, the TAM, is going to be smaller just because it is a 2-seat, like potentially a 2.5 seat single cab kind of pickup truck with a reasonably short bed. It's not a 8. It doesn't look like an 8-foot bed, anyways. So I think that you have some limiting factors there. I think maybe that's why they didn't launch with an SUV right away either, because that would be the largest segment of the market, though they may have some solutions for that kind of buyer. It's a real good way to kind of get a proof of concept out there. And I also think there could be, I don't see, while Jeff Bezos isn't running the company, in fact, there is no real, like, knowable CEO, based on the way you should all read the TechCrunch article. It'll be linked in the show notes too, because I see it on our show notes. But there is so much, I think Bezos could use it. I think Amazon could use it. I think one of the big challenges that sort of Bezos ran into with Rivian when Rivian was making RDVs exclusively for Amazon is those vans are still expensive. And I see a lot of them, and they're great for a certain kind of delivery, but I'm willing to bet they don't serve all of the needs of Amazon. So I could see there being a built-in
Amazon still
base.
runs a lot of, traditional box vans, as well as Sprinters and Transits and ProMasters.
Yeah. I live next to a Amazon warehouse, and so I get all the vehicles coming around.
Can you just go pick your own orders? Can you just go over there and be like,
I don't know. I don't think they're going to let me.
I don't think they have a pickup. The one I'm pretty sure the one over here down the road in Canton does not have a pickup window.
Yeah, there's no pickup window like the UPS store. So yeah, but I think there is a sort of hunger for a small, like, the K truck phenomenon. For a while, it was just nerds like us who wanted those, and now farmers are buying them, and companies are buying them, and people are getting all the they're importing these vehicles, which is kind of a pain in the ass, to be honest. You can't just go out and buy one. You have to import it, and it comes over, and you never got to drive it, and you're just sort of like hoping for the best. And I think this fills that need potentially for a lot of folks. And I think a lot of folks just kind of want a small truck. Your average person is not going to buy this vehicle. That's all there is. A 2-seater, those 2-door vehicle.
There are people who would buy a Miata with a pickup truck bed, but it's a very limited.
So, but it's like it's an EV. It's small. It's what a lot of people are asking for. We'll see how it does. I think cities, a lot of delivery people, a lot of people who have like little businesses in cities where they don't need to spend $50,000, $70,000 on an F-150.
Oh, sure,
whatever, and they just want something that makes that. They want that EV truck that everyone just keeps sort of clamoring for.
Well, and if we kind of go into,
I'm saying, I mean, to be honest, when it comes down to numbers, I think, we're looking 30, 40,000 units a year. Yeah. It's not going to be a huge seller, but that's like regular people. If they can talk a lot, if they can do a lot of fleet sales, and you're going to get the tax credits for it being an EV, then whatever random credits that businesses get.
Well, and how many Mavericks? I see a lot of Mavericks with stickers on them.
All of them. Half the Mavericks I see have stickers on them.
So how many of those buyers? How many of those buyers would be just as happy or happier with a regular cab truck?
that
That's a
costs
little
less
less
than the Maverick.
that costs less, because I keep seeing on Blue Sky, oh well, Ford, they know their customers. They do. They really do. They never marketed the Maverick as a fleet option. For fleet buyers, they sell a red cab F-150 like through Ford
They
Pro.
know their
Like,
F-150 customers and their Mustang customers.
yeah, but like they don't. This idea that, oh, because everybody's going out and buying Mavericks and making those their fleet trucks, doesn't mean they're all using the 4 doors. I think that yes, there is a certain customer who wants that 4 door, which then the Maverick will be, perfect for them. But I do think there's a lot of plumbers and contractors and just local handymen and things like that maybe already have a vehicle and don't want to use that for their business, or that could just get by with a reasonably basic pickup truck. And from what I'm hearing, which, Robbie, you have to recuse yourself again, like from what I'm hearing, this is going to be a very basic truck, like potentially no radio, like potentially only one color, like potentially a very and then looking at the photo that ended up on Reddit of what, again, TechCrunch confirmed as the truck, like the door handle, the driver's side door handle that you can see, it's just a rectangle, like a real basic basic.
You could say ass, right?
Yeah.
Ass.
Okay.
Sam, say ass.
Sorry.
You get the trifecta. There we go.
I was trying to not curse though. But a real basic, like a door handle, like something that you would literally just walk into an auto parts store and like see on the shelf. The headlights and the side markers and things like that. This all looks like stuff that you would buy on Amazon as replacements. Like, one of the criticisms of EVs right now, and it's a little bit skewed just because so many EVs are Tesla, is cost to repair and insurance. Help solve that with potentially a real basic kind of design that is easy to fix when there's damage. You're going to have fleet people that like it, and then you're also going to have regular buyers that like that idea. So I'm pretty bullish on it, other than it's a brand new company that nobody's heard of. Some people are going to be turned off just because they hear about Jeff Bezos because he gave some of his money. But it also looks like he has nothing really to do with the day-to-day operation of it. But he also is going to keep his hands off the New York Times, or the Washington Post. I mean. Yeah, the Washington Post, I mean. And we saw where that ended up. So, but I'm also, back to that sort of edification thing of like, hey, seeing if people on the internet actually will put their money where their mouth is. I also think that Bezos bringing a $25,000 EV to market before Elon does is hilarious, or at least potentially. And the consumer wins. I think the consumer wins. And I know we didn't want to talk about tariffs and stuff too much earlier, but like the economy is weird right now, which I think when you factor that in with the natural raising price of cars, 25 grand, if they can do it. If
they can deliver it, and I think for fleets, I think fleets are going to be willing to go for that minimalist approach, and they would probably love this thing for 25 grand. I think for consumers, that might be pushing it a little too far in terms of what they're willing to accept. For 25 grand, I think people are going to want to have at least, some sort of basic infotainment system.
Right.
We're bringing back Mini Trucking Magazine. That's all I'm saying.
Well, okay.
I'm going to relaunch. If this does those well, that's why I'm going to bring back Mini Trucking Magazine. I'll add a G at the end so I don't get in trouble with. Yes. I think Crane maybe owns them. You guys keep talking. I'm going to.
Yeah, while you're looking that up, what I'll say is, Sam, I 100% agree with you. One interesting thing in Sean's reporting, which actually makes sense, is they're going to lean very heavily on like accessories. Yeah. Because they know that the margin,
which means that the reality is that, and it's going to be like, when I got my truck in the mid 1980s, when I was going to college, back at that time, automakers regularly sold, Rangers, S10s, S15s, advertised, in those days, dealers still advertised in, print newspapers, and in the Saturday newspapers, they'd have all the dealer ads, and, you would see ads from every dealer, for, one of these basic pickup trucks for $49.99. And that's what mine was. It was a basic stripped down. It had manual crank windows. It had no AC, no radio, nothing. And at that time, you could buy those, and a fair number of people did, but they were designed to get people in the door. And then they realized, oh, I want a radio. I want AC. I want an automatic transmission. And now all of a sudden you're looking at $10,000 instead of $5,000. Right. And I think in this case, doing that, that loss leader to get people in the door, and then suddenly they're, driving out with a $35,000 or $40,000 version of this pickup truck.
Right.
I'm not sure if that's going to cut it.
Well, and thinking about this loss leader kind of concept, I also don't think they could operate quite that way today, because if you wanted air conditioning, well, not air conditioning, maybe that's not a good example, but like you had to build separate kind of vehicles. Like if you wanted that, if the truck itself came off the line the same way, no matter what, like I would imagine it would have to have air conditioning. Maybe it doesn't have power windows. That would be really, I think, a miss if it had neither one of those. But yeah, okay, you don't have a radio, but like if from what I'm hearing, it's like, hey, where you can buy an accessory radio that will work. So it wouldn't necessarily be, you could buy, it's basically Bluetooth. You basically buy a Bluetooth stereo that's designed to fit in a certain channel along the dash. That there you go, next to your phone holder or whatever. That I think it could be a bit more piecemeal than having to engineer a truck that comes with a manual and an automatic, for example. Like those aren't things you can add afterwards. And then you're not going to, but then you also have to worry about a dealership that's sitting on 10 manuals because they can't sell any of them, while the automatics or whatever. If they sell wraps and stuff at the point of sale, like you could, if what I hear is true, I still think you're right. Like I think the goal or the hope is that you go in to buy a $25,000 truck and you walk out having spent 30 or 35 just to help make up that margin for that loss. I would be really curious though to see like what do you get just for 25 grand? Because I feel like I would be one of those people that would just walk in and be like, I don't want that crap. I don't want that crap. Don't give it to me. Like, here, we go with that. So I guess it's going to kind of, for me, depend on sort of how much is missing. Because you're right. I don't think people are going to want to be able to connect their phone. Like that's basic. Like all the data suggests that people want to be able to connect their phone. Does everybody need to be able to run, GM's infotainment system or Hyundai's infotainment system? And they're all just running probably not. Does, I don't know. I don't know. I think it's going to potentially answer a lot of questions though that I've had about the market just in general. I can't see this being anybody's main car. I don't know, but who knows?
For an O'Reilly Auto Parts or an AutoZone, delivering parts, or other types of businesses, delivering stuff to other businesses. I think there's definitely a potential there for the commercial market, commercial market.
Sure. And Amazon may want something of it, a piece of that.
And there, there's definitely going to be some consumer market for this. How big that market is remains to be seen. But I think there's something there.
What's the just I meant to ask Sam, do you know sort of off the top of your head, like what's the price per kilowatt right now on batteries roughly?
For LFP batteries, it's in the neighborhood at a cell level, probably somewhere around $75 to $80 a kilowatt hour. Okay. Pack level, you could be looking at roughly 100-ish. Okay, maybe even under 100 for some types of like for a structural pack or a cell to pack design, because those are very much simplified. Then for NMC, you're looking at 125 to 130 bucks a kilowatt hour.
So like LFP, let's just go with a nice round 100 number.
Mhm.
A Fiat 500e has a 33 gross pack. So I'm thinking, and this is based on absolutely nothing but other than pulling out of my butt. Like I would think they would have to have at least a 40 to 45 hour pack, kilowatt hour
Butt
pack,
facts.
to get that 200, 220, 230 miles of range that I think like you're going to need. I don't think you need
for 200 plus miles of range. You're going to want like for real world range, not fantasy numbers for 200-mile real world range for a vehicle of this type, because it's clearly not aero optimized.
Right.
You're probably going to need somewhere in the range of 50 to 60 kilowatt hours.
Okay, so let's say 50. So that's a $5,000 battery pack.
Yeah,
roughly, at least their cost. So, can you build the rest of a car for 20 grand?
Yeah, certainly if it's minimal enough.
So, we'll see. I don't know. I'm kind of excited.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All
Robbie.
What? Built in the USA. That's what it says.
Indianapolis,
in
Indiana.
Sean's thing. So that's a thing.
Yeah. Indianapolis, Indiana. I would imagine, again, this is pulling out of my butt, but I think it would make a lot of sense for that LG plant in Western Michigan to be, well, once it's making LFP, makes like a really good supplier, I think.
Are they planning to build LFP there?
When I looked last week, it said they were.
Okay.
But I could have found the wrong thing.
But there's also a couple of other LFP plants under development. The Ford's Marshall plant, which I'm pretty sure they probably won't want to sell those to a competitor. But that's going to be online by the end of the year, early in the new year. And then there's also a joint venture plant in Mississippi between Cummins, PACCAR, and Daimler Truck that is going to be building LFP starting next year as well.
Well, and Robbie, I mean, we talked earlier about Maverick and Jim Farley. Farley was at Scion, was he not?
Yep.
He created Scion.
Yeah, this feels like this kind of feels like in a way a Scion moment too. Like, hey, we're going to sell you an thing, and then you go do stuff with it.
The funny thing about Scion was that the people who bought it weren't the people they thought were going to buy it.
No.
It was just like older couples who were like, oh, this is a good deal. It was like never the kids, never. Well,
that was the same way with the Kia.
Besides the BRZ, the FS,
FRS.
Everything else was just like, oh, this is a good deal, and then like grandma bought it.
But for the longest time, I swear the average age of a new Kia Soul buyer had to have been like 70 years old.
Oh yeah, the Kia Soul is amazing, and if you're an old person, it's even more amazing because it's easy to get in and out of. There's a ton of room.
Yeah,
it's not crazy over. It's the Kia Soul is an amazing vehicle. It's the only K car that we have in America.
And when you follow one down the street, you're in a Soul Train. So there you go.
Ooh, damn.
On that note, last Saturday morning, I was pulling out of Lowe's after I went to pick something up. And as I was there at the exit of the parking lot waiting to make a left turn, I looked over to my right and I noticed a white Jeep Grand Cherokee. And then I noticed, the wheels and tires on that Jeep Grand Cherokee don't look like what you typically find on a current generation Jeep Grand Cherokee. They were considerably wider. It had a lot more rubber. And so I snapped some pictures of it and, pulled up behind it and got some more pictures of it. And I didn't feel like writing. I was busy and didn't have time to write something up on my own. So I sent the pictures over to our pals at TFL, to Roman and Andre and Tommy, and said, here, do what you will with this. From the rear, it was noticeable that there was a dual exhaust system on this thing.
A very big dual exhaust.
Yeah, very large pipes. And then also where the fuel filler goes, there was no flap on there. There was just the fuel filler with a piece of tape over it, which indicates that they're probably switching this over to a capless filler system. From the front, there was no, there was some minor tweaks to the front end, to the front fascia, but just the sort of mid-cycle refresh type of stuff. And there is a mid-cycle refresh coming for the Grand Cherokee, but there's no big vents or ducts or anything like that. So almost certainly not a return of the full-on Trackhawk with the Hellcat V8 in there, because there's just nowhere to vent all that hot air that a Hellcat produces.
Right.
But very likely, either dropping a Hemi back in there or a high output Hurricane, with 500 plus horsepower.
Yeah.
And
I mean, these wheels are wide. They're wider than the body. The offset is
so bringing back an SRT Grand Cherokee.
Well, that makes sense, right? Like they did the RHO with the Hurricane, so why wouldn't they make a high performance Jeep out of that same engine?
Yeah,
that seems like almost a no brainer.
Yeah.
Especially now that Stellantis doesn't care about fuel economy.
Apparently not anymore.
So.
All right. Let's see what else. Speaking of TFL, they recently bought a 1968 Corvette convertible. They've been going through various generations of Corvettes. They had a C6 for a while, and a C4 and a C5, and now they're on a C3. And they've been shopping for this for a while. So they got basically a base 68. The 68 was the first year of the C3 generation. The base yellow convertible with the 350 V8 carburetor and a 3-speed manual transmission. And they published a video this morning where they drag race a lot of the stuff that they buy. They also a couple of months ago bought a used C8 Corvette, a 2021 model, like the first year of the C8s. And so they drag raced this 56-year-old Corvette against a 3 or 4 year old Corvette. You can probably guess how that one worked out. But then they also in their fleet have a new Nissan Leaf that they leased a few months ago for $10 a month, and their videographer Mary has been driving that thing. And so after the Corvette versus Corvette drag race, they put up the 68 against the Nissan Leaf, and I'll let you watch the video and see how that turned out.
I'm doing that right now.
But needless to say, Tommy was not in a good mood after that one.
Oh, Tommy.
Oh.
Poor guy.
Yeah. Let's see. And then continuing the Corvette theme, GM recently opened up a new UK design studio.
Yes, and they showed off a concept. And I don't care what anybody on the internet says, this isn't the next generation Corvette. At no point has that been indicated. But I'll let you talk more about it before I editorialize more on how not real this thing is.
Yeah, I mean, it's the designers at the studio have taken some interesting ideas, some themes from Corvettes of the past, some more modern ideas, mixed in a little of the type of stuff you see on, say, an Aston Martin Valkyrie, and created this concept. It's interesting. Some of these ideas could find their way into a future generation Corvette.
Sure.
But certainly not in this exact form. And Robbie, what do you think of this thing?
I mean, it's cool looking, but it's not going to be something someone's going to buy. From GM's not going to build this. They're not going to sell this.
It looks like
you'll sell, like, this is a car that, like, those, when you go to car shows, like certain, like you go to Monterey or you go to Geneva, there's all these supercar companies. They're like people maybe don't know this, but there's like a billion supercar companies, and they make 4 cars. Not 4 different cars, 4 cars.
Yeah.
And each one of those cars costs like $7 bazillion, and they sell it to like some rich person. and then that rich person like
or the
maybe
Sultan of
drives,
Brunei, you know.
yeah, and they drive it like once or twice, and then it just sits in a room and it gets dusty, and then they try to start it 3 years later and it won't start because there's only 4 of them.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
yeah, I think this is definitely one of those. This is something you would see from one of those supercar companies. Which, to be honest, I just don't even go and look at those cars anymore because I'm just like, well, maybe you'll make 2, but I mean, it looks cool. I mean, it's like, ooh, let's just do a cool race car from the future, and you know, but yeah, it's a cool concept. You're never. I know people are like, oh, no, you're never going to get this car.
If they would have licensed this to Polyphony Digital and said that it was the Corvette Vision Gran Turismo
Oh yeah.
from the game,
Everybody would
100%.
love it.
It looks like a VGT car.
Yeah.
If people know what I'm talking about, like it looks just like a Vision Gran Turismo concept. But as a real
what do you
car,
think of the split window look on both the front and the back?
I mean, I get why it's there. I kind of dig it. I like the Corvette Jake logo, the way they've sort of reimagined that as well.
No, it's all very cool and concepty. That's the thing. It's very cool and concepty.
Yeah, it's a design study. We open this new design center. We need to hire people. This is what our British designers can do. Like, this is an idea of something they could put together. So they did.
Oh.
It is an EV, but every concept's an EV. You know, you can't even guarantee there's actually an EV powertrain under there because it's a concept. It doesn't probably
there is
work.
almost certainly a golf cart motor with a very small battery.
Because you want it to move, like you want to be able to move it onto the.
Sure.
So you want to be able to move it around, not drive it, move it. Like, we gotta get it up on the. We gotta get it up on the stand.
This is one of the things I learned many years ago. Is about these concepts is more often than not, they use a lot of golf cart motors. And in those days they would use just 12-volt lead acid batteries. These days, they probably got a smaller lithium ion battery that, kind of like the one I've got sitting in the room next to me, for my generator. It's just enough so it can move under its own power, as you say, Robbie, to get onto a show stand. Yeah.
It's fun because we don't talk about this, but when we go and look at these concepts, either in a design studio or at a show, we get access that the regular person doesn't get because the regular person doesn't realize if you grab something, it'll break right off.
Right.
But whenever they have like the doors that open and close, it is always like the designer or the person who's walking you around every time they're crossing their fingers and hoping it doesn't break.
Yeah.
It always closes like clonk.
Or they don't want you to do it. They'll do it.
Yeah, but no, we got it, and they close it, and they're very gentle, and then there's a clonk.
And when you see it open, there's usually these giant fabricated hinge pieces, that have been milled out of a chunk of aluminum billet, to hold it all together.
These are not. No one's gonna. If you think you're ever gonna like go to an auto show, jump on one of these and steal it and take off, you're in for a world of hurt because it's just gonna fall apart.
Yeah.
It probably doesn't turn more than like 3 degrees,
right?
If you're lucky, and it's gonna go like 6 miles an hour, maybe. So someone's just gonna walk up to you and be like, "Sir, please get out of our car," and all of a sudden the steering wheel will break off in your hand, like I had in Geneva. I was supposed to sit in a car and do a video, and it turns out another journalist had gotten in the car without a handler and had broken the steering wheel off.
Kind of like Fernando Alonso's steering wheel did yesterday in Bahrain. There are some interesting bullet points at the end of this release here. Things like additive manufacturing body structure. So they've 3D printed the body structure for this thing.
See, it all goes back to makers.
Yeah.
Right?
It's all about the makers.
Yeah.
And I like the when the shot of the car straight ahead with the gull wing doors open. When you open the doors, the windshield, the wraparound windshield, the two halves of the wraparound windshield are actually attached as part of the door. So when you open the doors, the two halves of the windshield go up in the air with the doors.
Yeah, that's a $100,000 windshield there.
Oh yeah.
Don't break your windshield. Yeah, again, it's a cool concept. It's fun to see like what they're thinking. It's a fun thing for the designers to work on. It's not something that we're gonna get anytime soon.
Correct.
And if again you can't steal this, don't try. You're going to go real slow, and you're going to break something.
Go real slow.
It's not because they don't trust you; it's just that they don't trust you.
I mean, they also don't trust you.
I mean, they don't trust
sure.
us. I mean, to be honest, I know a lot of us.
I wouldn't trust me
either.
journalists,
and I don't trust them. They're like, "Oh, what's going on here?" Click. I can't believe this broke off, and I'm like, "It's not a real thing. Come on."
Yeah. Well, I told one of the Stellantis designers recently. I'm like, I want you to do a concept for an auto show, but make it instead of like cutting it out of the clay and stuff that they use cake. So you could have, yeah, like is it like one that you could film like a is it cake kind of thing? And I'd love to see somebody just go up during a reveal and just go take a bite out of the car. Like that would
car cake.
That would make me so happy. Because some of these concepts literally are the clay with some stuff on top of them to make it look like a car. Like it's not even all car underneath.
Yeah, it's usually a wooden or in some cases styrofoam buck underneath there that's just been coated in clay.
Yeah.
All right. One more pickup story I forgot to hit earlier. We talked about it right after the Slate. Kia, they're apparently developing a midsize electric pickup truck for the U.S. market. From the spy photo that Jalopnik had, I guess it's a screenshot from a video. It looks like the front end is straight off of an EV9.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it looks like this is basically an EV9 with a bed.
Which makes, I don't want to say makes perfect sense, but makes a good amount of sense.
Yeah, well, they built the EV9 in Georgia.
Yeah.
It would be pretty easy to, cut off the back and put a bed on there.
Yeah.
I mean,
and the Kia
Maverick is just an escape with the bed. Bed.
Yeah.
The Santa Cruz is just a
Tucson.
Tucson. Sorry, I was going to say Telluride. I'm like, that's not right.
The Kia Tasman, I know, isn't a gas truck, but like does have that same kind of vertical headlight design as well. So, it's sort of within Kia. It's within the group's current kind of design language. So
yeah,
I think that's a no-brainer. When are we going to get it though?
Who knows?
Well, so Ford is supposedly still on track for 27 for their midsize electric truck.
We'll see.
Well, correct.
Yeah.
But last time I talked to him recently they're like, oh yeah, that's still our plan. Like,
and
okay.
Yeah, the battery plants, they had initially announced 3 battery plants. One is paused. So there was 2 in Kentucky, 1 in Tennessee. The Kentucky one, talking to someone who is very familiar with that project, says they've got all the equipment in there. They're doing pilot production, and they'll be in volume production there this year. And then the Tennessee plant will be producing cells next year. And then Marshall, the LFP plant, will also be producing in first half of 2026 is the plan. So they could conceivably, when the vehicle itself is ready, they could be doing that, launching production of that by the end of 26 and the first part of 27. But this thing looks like it's a lot further along. This looks like something that they could potentially launch this year.
Yeah,
because you're looking at this image.
Show.
Yeah, the bodywork under the camo is painted. It's blue.
Yeah,
which is not something that you typically find on an early development mule. I mean, they're usually just white. I mean, you can see blue bodywork shining, looking through.
That is the same blue that's the launch color of
the EV9.
EV9.
Yeah,
and there's an auto show like next week after.
Yeah, but didn't they say what they were showing wasn't this?
I think it's going to be EV4.
Yeah, I think it's EV4.
That's going to be dope.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
What am I doing next week? Oh yeah, that's what I'm doing. Okay, never mind. What am I doing instead of this? Oh yeah, that thing. Okay.
That thing.
Can't talk about it.
All right.
We do a lot of things we can't talk about. It makes doing a podcast challenging.
It does. I'm sorry. Sorry, everyone. I'll get some more cars in soon.
We'll just have them we'll just talk about those on a future episode.
Yeah, in the future, like I knew before everyone else.
It's all part
I'll
of
be that
teasing the
annoying
content.
guy. I'll
You
be
want
the
people
guy that
coming back
I
for
saw
more.
the band first. I saw them at their first show with like 6 other people.
Hey, I
Good for
saw
you,
the
I
Who on their first farewell tour back in 1981.
Yeah, no one knew who the Who was back then, and they were saying goodbye already because no one knew who they were. They were just like, we're done. No one cares about this.
Back when Pete Townsend could still hear.
Oh, I don't think he could hear then either. Poor guy.
Maybe that's wouldn't rule that out. Ford's got a couple of new vehicles that we're not going to get.
Yes,
one is the Puma Gen E.
The Puma.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Puma. I actually really like this. When I first wrote about it, I don't know when they first announced it. I don't know, a while ago. This is basically saying is, hey, it's set to go on sale. But when they first showed it off, it did a lot of traffic on my website. Like people seem to be really interested in a compact EV. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
So the Ford Puma is sort of the crossover-y version of the Fiesta. If the Fiesta were still a thing, it's not.
Yeah.
And it's not in Europe either, I don't believe. I think
no, it's been discontinued in Europe as well.
Yeah. So this is the crossover replacement of that. They did do an ST version at one point. From everything that I've seen or read, I've heard it's a fairly decent small car. And they build them in Barcelona. And now it's electric. They have an electric version with a decent amount of range. It's I don't think it's MEB. I don't think it's like
not.
Explorer.
Only the Capri and the Explorer are MEB. This is a Ford platform.
Yeah. So it joins a growing Ford EV lineup in Europe, and I think it's cute.
Yeah, it's 523 kilometers of city range, so that's about 300 miles on WLTP. So somewhere around 250 to 270.
That's fine. That's all people need, especially if you're driving around town. Sure.
Yeah,
I once tried to tell my friends, I was like, my friend lives in Italy, and I was going to Spain. I was like, oh, maybe I'll drive to France. I'll drive to Italy from Spain, and they're like, oh, you have to drive through France. Don't do it. People don't do a lot of road trips in Europe. That's the thing. We were
because they have alternatives like trains that go really fast on time and reliably.
Just take a train or so we were in Northern Ireland, which is like the side of like San Diego County. It's not very big, and we were driving from Belfast, to like Whitehead, I think. There's like Whitehead and Blackhead. I can never. Anyway, we were going up to the coast, up to the very north, and it was like a 90-minute, 2-hour drive probably. And my in-laws were just like flabbergasted. We were going to do that all in one day. Go up there, hang out, and then come back. Just flabbergasted. Their brains exploded.
So last time I was in Europe, which has been a longer time since you, Robbie, but still this year, I guess certain European countries still aren't super great about like EV charging. So like France apparently is pretty good. Great Britain is terrible. So it kind of depends on where you're going. One thing I would like to add though about the Puma before we completely say goodbye to it is it has something called the Gigabox in it, which sounds kind of like a Giga Chad thing, but they've got photos on the media site of all of the stuff that they can put in it. But because of the way the batteries and stuff are organized and the way that they've cleverly designed the car, it stores an insane amount of junk in the back of it. I'm trying to get an actual number in cubic liters, but I can't seem to find it in the press release. But they're really proud of the amount of stuff you can shove in a Puma.
Yeah, it's got like a hole. It's got a trunk hole. You can fill.
Yeah, it's got two. They're showing what looks like not a golf bag, but like a snowboarding bag. They've got 2 prams, a folding table, 4 chairs. Looks like a cooler, a suitcase, and then like a snowboard or something. Like that's
You can put a lot of stuff in the junk. You can put a lot of junk in your trunk if you have the Puma.
If you have the Puma. I had a friend whose cat was named Puma. It was a wild.
Puma.
It was a wild.
574 liters of storage.
That's a 40
number.
Yeah, 574 liters is what's that in freedom units?
Let's try cubic feet. 20.27, so 20.3,
and then
which is
1.5 cubic foot frunk as well. So
I mean, for a small car, that's actually pretty decent.
Behind the second row.
Yeah, I'd take it, especially considering this is an EV and you got to shove the battery somewhere too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, you got to put a battery somewhere
with decent amount of range. So I don't know. I dig it. We'll never get it because it's too small. I still think there's a market for like a Fiesta-sized vehicle, but not a big market.
That's the problem.
But I think
profit margins are super thin on those small cars. And if you don't sell a lot of them, you're like, well, we made $12 last year.
Yeah.
On the Fiesta.
Yeah. So.
And then everyone asks for these like small cars, but then they just don't buy them. They're like, I just want a hatchback. I'm like, the Volkswagen Golf is still a car, right? You can still buy one.
I have a Fiesta.
Golf numbers, and you're like, oh.
Yeah. No, I have a Fiesta, and I think that despite certain things that have been very wrong with it, well, okay, so it has.
So you have the dual clutch transmission?
Correct. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Which Ford calls the power shift. I've called it something power.
You dropped one of the.
I dropped one of the letters. Yeah. But the rest of the car has held up pretty well. Like, it's not super fancy or anything, but it has Ford Sync, so it has Bluetooth with voice command that works, reasonably well. I still get like 38 to 40 miles to the gallon in it, and it's got a decent amount of space. It's not huge, but what do I care? Like, I don't need much more than that. So like, it's been, again, transmission issues aside, which have almost all been under warranty. I can't complain too much. I will, but just because that transmission's going to leave me high and dry at some point, but hasn't yet, knock on wood.
All right. One last story I want to touch on. Another Ford vehicle that we're not going to get here in the U.S., or at least there's no current plans for it. It's a new version of the Ford Ranger. We have Super Duty trucks here based on the F-Series. And those vehicles are too big and use too much petrol for virtually every other market in the world. Yeah. But the rest of the world is also getting a Super Duty based on the Ranger. What do you think of this Ranger Super Duty?
I think it's cool. I mean, like you said, it's like the people are like, well, how come people in other countries don't buy our trucks, our vehicles? Well, our number one selling vehicle is a truck that's entirely too big for most roads in other countries.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, people do buy them. To be clear, like, people do buy them. I mean,
they sell some in the Middle East, and there's a few places where they sell some, but not in any significant numbers.
Yeah. This, on the other hand, makes a lot more sense. The Super Duty Ranger. It'd be cool if it was kind of here. I think there's a lot of fleet capabilities for this, but the F-150s, that's just money, man. That thing just prints money for Ford, and they're definitely not going to try to cut into that with a Ford Ranger Super Duty in the United States.
With some of the stuff that they're showing here, accessory wise too, like these are accessories that you wouldn't be able to find from an upfitter in the US. Like, people would have to change business models and things like that. Like, when you could only buy, for the longest time, when you could only ever buy a Super Duty in proper Super Duty size, you have all of these companies that support fleets designing stuff around that for easy upfits and affordability, because you don't always want to have to buy all new stuff when you buy a new truck. Yeah, so would be
the genius of Ford is that the Lightning still takes all the upfitting stuff that you have on your regular F-150.
E-Transit's a transit. You can go to the same upfitter and get the same stuff.
Get the exact same things.
So I don't know, like, even if they offered this here, like, I don't know.
I don't think they would offer.
Who would buy it?
It doesn't make sense financially for them to offer it.
No.
I think everyone is just like, we already have the F-150. Like you said, it's like we already have. There's an ecosystem already for the F-150 that no one wants to mess with.
Yeah, an ecosystem is important for fleet buyers in a lot of cases. I mean,
Oh, yeah,
cost matters, but if they've already invested in a particular ecosystem, if they're already all Macintosh, like they don't want to switch to Windows.
Yeah.
I don't want to switch to Windows.
And they, the GVW on this Ranger Super Duty goes up from about 6,790, so about 6,800 pounds, up to 9,900 pounds. So it goes up by over 3,000 pounds. And I think I can't find it now, but I think it's got about over 9,000 pound tow rating as well.
Cool.
And it has a snorkel.
Yeah,
because you're in Australia, it's either dry or rainy. I guess I've never been to Australia. I'm sorry for all our.
I'd love to go to Australia, even though everything there tries to kill you. Every spiders and scorpions and whatever. But and then for the people that this still doesn't have enough towing for, they'll buy a full size pickup truck. I mean, when I was in Sweden a month or so ago, I saw a Ram 2500 drive by, and at first it didn't click with me, and then I stopped and I'm like, how did this get here? What is this? But in places and I've been in other parts of Europe too, like where you would expect to see a lot more pickup trucks, you'll see full size pickup trucks, even if they're not sold in the same volume there as they are here. Like life, as Jeff Goldblum says, life finds a way.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up there. Chad, as always,
yes, sir.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun. I like talking about stuff that we can't talk about. It's cool. But no, it's. I think that it's easy right now to get caught up. It is easy to get caught up in what's going on. I just messed with the spreadsheets. Sorry, I think it's easy to get caught up a lot in tariffs and stuff like that, because that is a very important part of what's happening in the business. But we talked about some new products today that are EV focused that seem almost kind of silly with the way the current administration is kind of running things. So automakers still seem pretty bullish on EVs. I think that's they're
not giving up yet, which is good.
Yeah. I think that should be an indicator.
They have other markets that they need to contend with, and they have they understand that one administration, the next administration, what happens in 4 years, what happens in 2 years with
right.
Every election is is going to add change. It's just the idea of sustained chaos just makes it a lot difficult, very difficult right now for businesses of all sizes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, it's still fun to talk about. I mean, I didn't necessarily expect to be this busy with stuff, just because I'd like to not talk about politics, but at least it keeps us on our toes.
Yeah, and we'll have lots more to talk about next week with the Lucid Gravity, some new stuff coming from the New York Auto Show, including electric stuff and more, and so. Keep listening, and we will be back next week. And actually, keep listening now, because right after we say goodbye, there will be my conversation with Jean-Philippe Gauthier from Lucid about software and electronics in the Gravity. A lot of cool stuff that they've done in that vehicle.
Is that Gauthier like the musical group, Robbie?
There's also the designer, and there's I don't know.
Okay.
Spells her name. Hold on, looking at it.
I'm sorry. Thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. All right, talk to you all later. Bye.
Bye.
All right. So let's talk about let's start with the EE architecture of the Gravity, and how that's changed. Maybe let's start with what is the general layout of the EE architecture in this part? Have you gone to a zonal architecture or?
Yeah, so just like here, we have a zonal architecture where we have gateways. So in Gravity, we have 3 gateways. Here, two the front corners and one in the back.
Okay.
They are all linked together by gigabit Ethernet, our backbone network in a ring. So if I lose one connection, I still can talk to all the gateways. So that gives me communication redundancy, basically. So we have those 3 gateways, and out of each gateway, I have a bunch of CAN, LIN, and Ethernet ports. Okay, and then I reach those ECUs that are closest to the gateway. Okay, by doing this, I don't do CAN or LIN by domain. I do it by proximity, so I have less wire in it, basically. Okay, and so that's first thing we are doing, and that's like what zonal architecture means, right? If you have big, powerful gateways that are like spidering out in its zone, and then that zone is covered by that gateway. Another thing we are doing is our power distribution system has 2 completely independent power rails and 2 12-volt batteries, which means that if I lose power on one of those power rails, if I have a short circuit or something like this, I have switches that open, and then it saves the rest of the other power rail, basically. So when you have that, so if you add communication redundancy and power redundancy, then you have the perfect platform to do autonomous driving. You don't need redundancy in the sensors. What you do is you distribute them equally on both sides of those power rails, and you make sure that you have enough. If you lose one half, you have enough sensors on the other half to safely stop on the side of the road. It doesn't mean you need all the sensors for that. It's like a reduced set of function.
Yeah, you want essentially a fallback position, just enough to get you to a minimum risk condition.
Yeah, and that redundancy is not only useful for autonomous driving, it's also useful when you drive yourself. For example, I'm driving at night, I have a huge short circuit, I will still have one headlight. Okay. Same thing happens, I still have steering assist, or I still have brake assist. So it's not only for AD, it's also functional and developed for when you drive the car yourself. So that's for redundancy, and all of that is made in a way that I believe that this car is the best platform to do AD, right? There's no other car that is as ready to do autonomous driving. On top of that, we went from, in air, we had E-fuses and normal fuses, a mix of both. In gravity, we go all E-fuses, which means that we don't need to have an access panel for the fuse box. That means that I can package it farther away, and I can give that space back to the occupants. First thing. Second one is not having to replace fuses means that you cannot put the wrong rating of a fuse in the same socket, because car fuses, they are all the same socket, and you can put the wrong rating, and then you can have a fire. So with the E-fuse system, there is no risk of putting the wrong fuse. So it's a safety advantage. And an E-fuse will pop open much faster than normal fuse.
They have better protection.
And also I don't have to compensate for the production tolerances, because the fuses are made by the millions, right? Oh. And actually the tolerances are pretty large. The plus minus like 15%. So I need to cover 30% with my wiring, just in case the fuse is at the end of the tolerance stack. So what I do with E-fuses, then I can make my wiring a little bit smaller and just rely on the E-fuse and the software that controls it, and have always a super repeatable way of popping it. Another thing is, let's say that I have like a heated steering wheel, okay, and the wire that goes to it is rated for 5 amps. Well, it's rated for 5 amps when it's 80 degrees outside or something like that. When I use the heated steering wheel, it's much colder outside. So what I can do, I can compensate for temperature and let 7 amps instead of 5. And I know that knowing my wiring size and the temperature of the wire, I can push more without problem. So it gives you
It gives you the opportunity for a little bit better performance, those types of features.
And more flexibility on the different use cases. And one last thing that we are using is having an E-fuse gives you a switch, right, for free, that you can control with software, which means that if there's a feature you're not using right now in the car, you're driving down the road and you're not using it, I can put power to it. And all of those, I would say, side losses of like running the processor just to listening on the CAN network might consume 2-3 watts. I get rid of that. So it's another way to maximize completely the efficiency of the car.
So moving inward from the zone controllers to your primary compute, how is that architected right now?
So on top of those 3 gateways, I have one ADAS controller, okay, that is based on the NVIDIA Orin processor.
Orin?
Yeah. So I have 2 RNX in there, and that's 250 flops per processor.
Oh, so you got 2 Orins.
Yeah, 2 of them. So that's 500 flops. It's more than what you would have on Hardware 4 with Tesla, which you don't give their numbers, but pretty much everybody agrees about 300 flops for GPU and DLA, right? So we have a higher rate there. So we have a really good platform to develop all of those functions that we want to do. So that's the first part. The second part is in Air, we have so many displays that we had to have 2 computers for infotainment. One for the left display, that was the instrument panel that was running on QNX, and one that was running Android for the right display for infotainment. In Gravity, we chose a processor that can do both. So we have a hypervisor on QNX, and then we have Android that is running on top of it for the right.
What SoC are you using for that?
We are at the 8295 from Qualcomm.
Okay.
And we have 32 gig of RAM and 256 gigs of storage. So I have, and I have plenty of headroom there to add functions over the years. So that was super important in Gravity. We really want to make sure that this car is a real software-defined vehicle that can get more features as we work on it after a SOP, basically. So we made sure that we have plenty of storage, and we have big processor that can take the excessive processor load if we develop those new functions.
So, other body control functions across the vehicle, everything from turn signals and lights to climate control and so on. Where is that running?
Is that one of the gateways? So my gateways, all that runs out. Yeah, my gateways are overloaded. So they are not only gateways. One of them is a body controller. The other one is a vehicle controller.
Okay.
So one of them is taking care of turning on and off stuff. The other one is taking care of listening to the accelerator pedal and sending torque commands. So those are my 2 front gateways. So I'm actually using the ECU for 2 functions.
Okay. And I understand that, for some of the features that are on here, like, for example, the ZF steering actuators on the rear, the front steering actuator, the brake controller, the Bosch iBooster, those still have their own ECUs on there. Is the way the system is architected, are you able to do OTA updates to all of those ECUs across the entire vehicle?
Yeah. When I send an SOW to my suppliers, I tell them I am following UDS something, like to tell them what protocol I plan on using for firmware updates, and I'm requesting them to give me a door to update it. It's good practice, and the suppliers actually are very open to that, because then they can have more business by giving us an updated software.
Sure.
But that's always a requirement. When we go for quotes, we always say it needs to be updatable. We have more updatable systems in Gravity than Air. Air, there were a couple of things that were not updatable that created issues, and now it's much more. So it's not complete. And I would say the things that are super, very simple and also very mature, window switches, I don't need to update that, because I know it's been working for 10 years, they're the same part number and everything. But anything that has first of all, a customer interface needs to be updatable. So everything chassis, all of them, we require it to be updatable.
And then your overall software architecture, you mentioned the hypervisor that's running on the Snapdragon cockpit chip. You've got QNX and Android on there. On that ADAS controller and on your zone controllers, how is your software architected across those?
So on the ADAS controller, we're using the NVIDIA stacks. Runs on is it Drive OS?
Drive OS, yeah.
And for all the other controllers, my zonal controllers are running on the Infinium Tricore, ATC397, that has a lockstep operation. So I have two cores that compare the result every time, so I can get into say state super easily. Yep. Those are running on Those are running on a.
Heck, Sam. All right.
they're running on a safety review, on a safety OS by an AutoSAR OS. Okay, so all of my zonal controllers and stuff you don't see is developed with MATLAB Simulink, with automatically generated code, and we use AutoSAR to build it and put it the OS we're using. It's a Nissan Leaf AutoSAR OS that we're using.
So the ADAS controller, you're running NVIDIA's Drive OS on there. Are you using any of NVIDIA's Hyperion Drive software stack or any of the components of that in there, or was that all developed internally by
It's developed internally. Okay, so we plan on using state-of-the-art like dev transformers in the next year. So we are already running those cars with cameras to like train our model, and during the year we will have more and more features coming out as we train the model. So initially we have a ClickMove camera, a ClickMove system for the ADAS features. And our ACU right now is used to train our models, and we will have more and more features after SOV.
And at launch, what ADAS features are available on Gravity?
So you have drive assist, so lane centering and adaptive cruise control.
That a hands-on system?
Hands-on for now. Okay. Will become hands-up later in the year. We have driver monitoring. We have all of the active safety features that are needed to get 5 stars. We have all of this. And actually, the drive assist that we have from the feedback we are getting right now is better than what we had in Air. It's a different system, and it's very robust and works very well. And also, it's not map-defined, so you can use it on any street. Then the camera can recognize the lanes. So that will be that at start of production, and then as we go, we perfect our models, we will bring more with the AD02 model as a Dream Driver. We'll have more and more features.
Okay. Any other major highlights of the E architecture, the software architecture that?
I would say we have really good screen in there that requires a lot of like computing power, and that's one of the reasons why we went to the 8295. Also there are things that we brought in-house, like for example those struts there. In Air they were smart struts with an ECU in them, and I would control them over LIN networks. This time it's a dumb strut, and I controlled it myself as an actuator, like just on the command stand. And we have three LVGBs. We call those our fuse boxes, basically. One in the back, one in the cabin in the front, and one in the front. And those are the ones that are controlling those IR. It works very, very well. One last thing is, in Air, we had that too, but we didn't really talk about it. In the battery, it actually had a small power supply that creates 12 volt out of the 900 volts of the battery. All the contact are just a DC-DC converter? Yeah, no, super small, like 75 watts DC-DC converter. And it's before the contactor, so it always has high voltage. And when the car shuts down, all of the systems that are still on in the car are consuming power from that.
So they're not drawing from the 12 volt batteries.
So you don't discharge and charge the battery, which means when you discharge and charge the 12 volt battery, your efficiency overall is about 50%. That little power supply is like 92% efficient.
Oh, okay.
So that means that I can consume wax that I don't lose as much range. So the phantom drain is better.
Does that also reduce the risk of the problems that a lot of OEMs have had with 12 volt battery failures, dead batteries?
Yes, because the batteries in this thing don't see current when the car is off.
So as long as you've got some power, some juice in the main high voltage pack, you can start the car.
Correct. And because also you can even disconnect the 12 volt batteries and you can start the car. Same thing with Air. You never really talked about it. Yeah. I'm really proud of that. It's that we have like a series of events that small DC-DC can support until we close contactors on this, we start the DC-DC, then we get main 12 volt, and we can start the car with it. With Gravity, the rating is higher. So on Air, it was 15 watts about. We funk it up to 75, so that way we can do surround surveillance with the cameras.
Okay.
Without having to close contactor.
Yeah, because that is one of the problems on Teslas. When you put on Sentry mode, it'll use a lot of juice.
So we worked really hard on that, and I'm very proud of that. So we probably have the most efficient kind of Sentry mode system compared to Tesla and Rivian. Rivian also is pretty efficient.
Your child has so much potential, but your local schools may not be right for them. Check out K-12. K-12 powered schools are accredited tuition-free online public schools for students in kindergarten through 12th grade. This is not your typical homeschooling. With state-certified teachers specially trained to teach online, your child will learn at their speed, at home, with innovative, engaging technology. Join the more than 3 million families who have chosen K-12. Go to k12.com/podcast today to learn more. That's k12.com/podcast.